It's Sunday, which means House of the Dragon is on. But if you can't wait for that, you have a really good show to watch before then, which is Wicked Women, coming to you live from London, UK, and from Virginia and Chicago. And I'm going to bring in the two lovely ladies that make up the Wicked team. I'm going to bring in the lovely Val. There she is, all the way from Virginia. And the lovely Carly from Chicago.
Hello.
Hello, ladies. How are you?
Pretty good. Are you?
It's been a week of it.
Hasn't it?
It's been a week. I have to say, it's not been the easiest a week. How about yourselves?
Same here. I fell sick. My little one caught it first, and then my husband and I. So it's been a little rough, a little summer cold.
There's a lot of sickness going around at the moment, isn't there?
There is. So I just wanted to emphasize that sick and with chronic illnesses, we're still here.
We are. We still go. Even when we have the odds are against us, we still keep going. Val, how's your week been?
It's been kind of busy. I've had a few custom orders to do, so.
I've seen that, and we must talk about that more at the end of the show, because you're getting lots and lots of good things. Interesting show last week, very good topic, and we decided to follow it this week because we had a little girly chat afterwards, and we thought, why don't we follow it this week with follow on from that topic, which is sexual magic. And it's a weird thing, because I once was asked by Michael, actually, if I'd ever practiced it or ever done it. And I said, no. Sex is magic anyway, but I just thought, no. And then we were discussing it. So it seems weird that years later, here we are absolutely now doing it. And it's quite a large topic that we all discovered after our research this week, just looking into two people alone. And that's just covering small bases. There is so much more to cover. And I remember saying, I'll do Aleistir Crowley. And and then and Carly was doing Craddock, who not many people I think have heard of, but actually she's quite well known for stuff. And Val has got her hands and toes into all kinds of stuff. So we're looking forward to it. And I must say, first of all, congratulations on the show last night, Val.
Well, thank you. My glasses are fogged up because it's so hot in.
I got to put this on so I can read, but I absolutely caught it. It was brilliant.
It was more of a mother-daughter chat session, I think.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was cool. Right, so let's look at this topic, sexual magic. Carly, coming to my girl from Chicago first. Actually, I was hoping to get out to Chicago this year, They have a Blues Brothers tribute with the official Blues Brother, and I so want to be there. I know, if I'd have totally rung you and said, I'm here. So, sexual magic, what is it? And what does it mean? We're looking at all different kinds of it. And just to sort of bring up a bit of a hint before Carly comes in with some of her stuff, which I know she's got it. I'm just bringing up my notes here. I mean, let's be honest, as I said, sex is pretty magic. We all love a bit of sex, and it can all be really magical. And it's pronounced Magick. And it basically means you're summoning the energy that's locked inside your body, and you use orgasm as a vehicle to manifest. So when you, with orgasmic energy and vibrations, you can intensify any spells, financial gain, personal, creative, love life. And wherever you reach, as they like to put it, climax with another body or alone, sex magic is one of the most effective ways to acquire your desire. And it's almost like bringing your dreams into waking life. At least that's what it's described. Carly, over to you. How did you find Ida?
Ida was fascinating. She was beyond and ahead of her time. She was in the 19th century Victorian times, and she was actually from Chicago. And she was ahead of her time with her enlightenment and her advocacy for women's rights, free speech, and sexuality. And that is what she focused on, and that was her goal in educating everyone that she could. She also even did sexual counseling out of a small office.
Wow.
She set out to educate the public on sexual relations within a marriage specifically, and advocating for mutual pleasure and respect between spouses. She sought to teach about single sexual standard for marital fidelity.
And what year was this, Carly? What year are we talking about when Ida was doing this?
1857, I believe.
So if you think about it, looking even back in those times, wow, she was really out there.
Yeah, way ahead of her time. And she wanted to make sure that she got her education on sexual rights and women's rights specifically to everyone. So she began using the post office, and the post office became her ally. So she wrote 2 pamphlets, The Right to Marital Living, and The Wedding Night. And these were all handwritten. And then each pamphlet was folded and stitched together by hand. And she had them mailed out through the post office, trying to spread her education on sexuality through everyone that she could. And unfortunately, of course, there has to be somebody out to try and stop her. And the main person for that was Anthony Comstock. He had Comstock laws based on his morals, which were, for that time, basically moral censorship is what he was trying to do. And he became the arbiter of public morality, deciding what could and could not be sent through the American post office system. So he tried to stop Ida in every ways that he could. He had raids against her. He had her arrested multiple times. And it was just insane how he tried to stop her when free speech was something that's supposed to be huge in America. And he was an example of that moral censorship, and it was really sad. But Ida set out to make sure she could continue educating the public, and she was not going to let him stop her. So even though she was arrested, she spent 3 months in prison, and he would try and arrest her immediately again. She had been in Chicago, and then she moved to New York, and that's where Comstock had her imprisoned again. And unfortunately, after she got out of her prison sentence, he rearrested her immediately. And then the sadness happened. The morning that she was supposed to be sentenced, she drank lamp oil and fatally slashed her wrists. And she wrote her final letter to her mother, specifically saying, "I will die a free woman, not crowed into silence by any other human being." So she wanted to go out as a free woman, not under his moral censorship, and showing that she died for her rights and what she sought out to educate the public on for her entire life. And unfortunately, because of Comstock, her life was ended too soon.
So this is a lady, Ida, but basically was girl power back in the 18. What would you say? What year it was?
1857.
So it's literally coming into the early 19th century. And from what I read about Ida, she had a very inquisitive mind and a rebellious spirit, and totally at that time in the world, women were not supposed to have that. You were supposed to be seen and not heard and look pretty and say nothing. But here was a woman driven by intellect and ambition, knocking on doors of universities only for them to close on her because she was a woman.
Yes, they denied her entrance because of her gender, but she sought out to not let that stop her. She continued her education on her own.
And isn't it weird that today as women, we're still fighting for us to be seen and, fighting for our rights still, even today. And one thing I read about her as well is that she always wanted knowledge. She always wanted to push herself further, and looked into religion and sexuality and human rights. And also she felt like there was a lot, from what I got a sense from her, she felt like too much was secret. You know, it was so much was kept under, and she believed that sexual ignorance was the root cause of basically the woes, including unhappy marriage to moral decay. I mean, that's a huge thing to say from a woman.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the women were not supposed to know about things like that.
Exactly.
You know, women were not supposed to know anything about that.
No. She also, she wrote Right Marital Living and The Wedding Night. And these were not books, but declarations challenging the norms regarding sexuality and marriage. But as you said, she tried to print them. And every page, look at the work went into this. Every page was set by her hand in the dark of early print shops. And so all you would have smelt in those days was more, you know, the metal and the ink. And it almost reminds me a bit of Bridgerton, where you've got that young girl who's writing the secret, you know, diary of what's going on, and she's taking it to the printers, going, shh, you don't know who's doing it. It reminds me, Carly, a bit like that.
Yeah, it really does. I just found that fascinating, how she didn't let any of that stop her, and writing it all by hand and sewing it all and making sure that they went out through the post office, and the post office becoming her ally like that. I found really incredible too, that they were on her side.
Sure.
And helped her to get her message with those 2 pamphlets spread out as far across the US as she could.
I mean, this woman, you know, she stood her ground, and obviously you say this Anthony Comstock, moral censorship, you know, waged a campaign against her and her teaching. And yet again, being the time that it was, he then obviously heard about her, saw what she was doing, and turned his way on her. Val, can you imagine today? That's very, very different. But back then, this woman was like, you know, groundbreaking.
Well, yeah, because, you know, like I said, women were not supposed to know about things like that. It was left up to the men to teach their new brides, or, you know, the only women that really knew about or were supposed to know about things like that were like the prostitutes,
Ladies of the
or night. You know, someone who the men would go to instead of their to-be brides, because, you know, they didn't want to corrupt their new bride.
Yes.
So they went and got their jolly somewhere else. And then even after they were married, they, you know, a lot of times they did that. So anyone speaking up for, you know, the women's side, it was probably considered evil.
Yep.
Do you think, though, Carly, she was on her own? Because I get a sense a lot of the time she was on her own doing this.
She was. She did not have many people helping her, really. She did it all herself. Yeah. And that's what was even more incredible about her. And one thing I also wanted to comment on was how she focused on marital fidelity. So one thing that her and Comstock actually shared is that they both, now I'm going to lose it in my notes, they both condemned prostitution, abortion, masturbation, and I think that was it. Yeah, those 3 things. Contraception.
So 3 things: abortion, masturbation, and contraception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing about that, back then, those were 3 subjects that were not discussed, were not brought up at all. And it seems like she really wanted to make a difference for not just women, but for everyone to learn about sexual health. have an enlightened knowledge about it. But also she was quite a girl. She got up to a few things I heard in her time, and in her own sexuality as well. I'm just reading here on that obviously her final letter was a blend of defiance and sorrow, and she took her own life. And as you say, she went out as she wanted to carry on. And I just think that's amazing. What the strength of this woman. How old was she when she died?
That I don't actually know. Good question. Let's see.
Let's have a look.
1902 on October 16th. She was 45.
45. Wow. So I just want to bring up some of her sexual magic, because some of the photographs you can see of her are quite interesting, because they call her a radical occultist and martyr of sexuality, basically, of the sexual revolution of that time. And her life was not dull. And, who knows that, we'd ever be, and especially from Chicago, because this is really coming home to you, that you are here now all these years later in Chicago, where this woman was kind of like, out there almost burning her bra.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very well known in Chicago for all of her practices and trying to help everything, until she then moved to New York. And continued.
Yes, I see that she fled to London, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
To avoid being sectioned at the hand of private investigators hired by her mother, marrying and having sexual relations with an angel named Soph, which she wrote about as an entity in her diary at the time. This is a trailblazer lady. And Val, I mean, in the late 1800s, as you say, women were not doing this. They were not thinking about sex, but actually women were thinking about sex. I mean,
well, it was, but it was not public knowledge. It was all behind closed doors.
Hush, hush.
I recently watched a movie, and I think it kind of, gives you a sense of the way they were treated then. There was a newlywed couple. She got pregnant, and she had a difficult birth. Of course, back then, I think a lot of them were difficult births. After the birth, luckily they both came out okay. The doctor actually told the husband, she doesn't need to have another baby. She doesn't need to try to have another baby, because it's not going to work out that way. It's more likely that she's going to die if she gets pregnant again. So to resolve that, he told the husband to get his jollies elsewhere and to not have sex with his wife at all anymore. So that wasn't just, condemning her to a sexless marriage. It was him also.
Yes, and unfortunately, that was probably not just the one. That's happened quite in many marriages.
Right.
Because, we talk about sexual magic being releasing yourself, becoming, almost in touch with the divine, going into your higher self, and enjoy. I mean, we've all had. Most of us, I'll rephrase that. Most of us have had sex. We've both, all three of us, just to say, have experienced the pleasures of it, and orgasm and everything.
I can't remember it.
Well, it's been a while for me.
I'm sure I had it a couple times.
Only Carly's sitting here going, I'm quiet.
I have two kids, so apparently I had it at least twice. I forgot.
But she, Ida talks about the fact that, she was a radical free thinker, and she talks about sexual pleasure and enjoyment when, as we talked about before, when sex was only for sexual procreation, and, it was all for one thing. So I think this is a lady that when you see some of the photographs of her, I'm going to bring in a picture of her so people can see the lady that we're actually talking about. The lovely, here she is. This is Ida Craddock, and she's I think she's a very beautiful one.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She looks She looks obviously very serene here, but this is a woman that was real girl power, real fought for women's freedom and rights in sex, to have masturbation, to use contraception, and basically was targeted. What was the guy's name, Carly?
Anthony Comstock.
By this gentleman who basically hounded her to take her own life. How sad. How sad that that lady lost it. And she is, quite at the beginning of this century, quite a radical. And around the same time, says Wendy, around the same time came to light another gentleman who was born on the 12th of October, 1875, and that would be Aleistir Crowley, as he's pronounced, I believe, if I'm getting it right. And he's always been a very interesting subject to me. And I know Val and I have talked about Aleistir before. And to be honest, we could not do him justice in one show, because he is far too profound and so much going on. But just to give a bit of a background, he was born Edward Alexander Crowley, 12th of October, 1875. He was an English occultist, philosopher, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. But everybody is probably more aware of him for his sexual tastes and practices. And also, if you read the tarot, you would know about his Golden Dawn tarot, which is quite strong. Some of us can read of it and some of us can't. And as I started reading up on this gentleman, obviously I was aware of him growing up. If you come from England, you definitely are aware of Aleistir Crowley. And also he was once called, I believe, the most evil man in the world. I think I've got that right. The interesting fact which I wrote about him today is that he came from a Christian background, very much so. His parents were fundamentalist Christian Plymouth Brethren. I believe that's the religion. And he was educated at Trinity College, at the University of Cambridge. So he was not stupid. And he was very much, he focused his intentions on mountaineering, poetry, and he actually did several publications as well. There's also a rumor that he was also a spy. And it's come over the years for the British intelligence. He was known to work for them. Whether or not he did, no one ever knows. But what I found interesting about him, and I'm just going to find my note here because I was writing this, because I brought out the highlights I wanted to do. Yes, he called his dad my hero and my friend. His mother how can I put this nicely? Described him as the beast, which apparently he reveled in, that his mother had called him that. She didn't like him. She didn't feel comfortable with him, but he actually associated very well with his dad. And it sounds like he led quite an interesting life, going out to India, mountaineering, meeting different people, to Egypt. He really took himself around. But obviously what he's known for is a lot of his sexual and occult practices. Val, what do you feel that before we go into more about him, what do you feel when you talk about Aleistir Crowley?
To be honest, I can feel the evil when you talk about him. I mean, when you see a picture of him, he just looks like he's looking through you.
Let's just bring in, actually talking about that, let's just bring a picture of him. Obviously, I have a picture of him a little bit later on in life. Let me bring him in. Here he is. This is the gentleman, Aleistir Crowley, later on in his life, actually about 20 years before he actually died. But he looks very striking, very, very striking gentleman, very focused eyes. and very well dressed, considering some of the things he got up to in this picture. Incredibly well dressed.
Yeah, I don't know. He just creeps me out. And it may be because, I know of his history. I don't know. It's kind of like, when you see a picture of Charles Manson.
Yes.
He just looks, you can just feel the evil come off of it.
He's well known, I mean, for being not exactly the easiest person to get on with as well. And he attracted attention because of what he wrote, his novels, his poetry, his occult literature. He founded quite a few orders, one being, I think I've got this right, A.A, not sure that's how pronounced, which they propagated, and I'm going to see if I get this right, Thelema, I think that's the name of it. He also brought another Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. I believe he became the leader of the British branch of that as well. And they established groups in Britain, Australia, and North America. He spent the First World War in the United States, where he took up painting and campaigned for the German war effort against Britain. But they say he was a spy for the British, so that's very interesting to hear that. He also is known as a drug user, bisexual, and a social critic. He's remained, even the Beatles put him on Sgt. Pepper's album cover. He remains a very highly influential figure over Western and the culture from the 60s onward. It's really hard sometimes to get your mouth around some of these words, because some of these words are but think of it, this is a gentleman that basically came from Warwickshire in the UK. Nice place, or at least it was back then. Haven't been there for a long time. His mother came from Devonshire, Somerset family, very nice area, and she always had a strained relationship with him. And I wonder if she picked up and felt something about him then, Carly, that mothers tend to pick up about children, where she describes him as the beast, which is not always a name you would call one of your children.
No, not at all. And he was one I didn't get to research much with being sick. But I wanted to touch a little bit on what I looked at now, is how there was an Ozzy Osbourne song co-written with the guitarist about him, where he posed the question, what went on in your head specifically to Mr. Crowley in 1980 on the album Blizzard of Oz. I guess it was taken by many as an absolute proof of the singer's satanic tendencies, as well as Aleistir being dubbed as the wickedest man in the world, as you had said, and a man we'd like to hang, they also said, by the British press. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a gentleman that didn't care what he dabbled in, to be fair. And I mean, his father was actually a Quaker before he converted to the Christian fundamentalist group. So he's come from a very religious background, coming from round about the same time of Ida, a very, background where, it was frowned upon to be looking into some of the things that he was doing. And his father would read a chapter from the Bible over breakfast every day. They actually moved to Red Hill, which is not in Surrey, which is not far from me. So actually this is kind of almost personal, because he was almost on my borders here. He had a difficult time at school. His father died of tongue cancer, which he says was a turning point in his life. As I said, he described him as his hero and my friend. And then he seems to have literally turned a corner. I think he was moved from school, and I'm going to see if I pronounce this, for developing albuminuria. I think that's it. And then instead of actually being like he wanted to be seen by his parents. I mean, they wanted him to be this very good, upstanding gentleman, Christian background, and he was out smoking, masturbating, and having sex with prostitutes, and which he went on to develop gonorrhea, and we know what that can do to the body and to the state of mind. So this is a gentleman who's basically turned his back straight away on his background and gone, no, I'm going to do things my way. I'm interested in this, and has done that. I know he had lots of loves in his life. He also, I'm just reading here about, he had a significant mystical experience while on holiday in Stockholm. This was a lot of his biographers believe this was the result of his first same-sex sexual experience, which enabled him to recognize that he was bisexual, which back then, yet again, still a huge thing. And although at Cambridge College, he was out with all the ladies having a vigorous sex life, eventually he took part in the same-sex activities despite them being illegal, because obviously back in 1897, being a homosexual was illegal. And he eventually met someone called, and if I pronounce this right, Herbert Charles Polite. They entered into a relationship, and they broke apart because he did not share Crowley's increasing interest in Western I can pronounce this. I need to get my teeth in tonight. I can't pronounce this. Forgive me, I just cannot. But basically, they disagreed on their views and they split up, which Crowley regretted for the rest of his life. It's really hard to pronounce some of these words tonight. What I'm looking at are these two people born in the 1800s, very much a turning point in 19th century of Victorian times. Sexuality being questioned, things being pushed, boundaries being pushed, Carly, and people fed up of being constricted by religion and controlled, and going their own way.
Yeah, I think that shows a good turning point of when people began to seek their own enlightenment and their own spirituality and things outside of the religion that they had forced upon them for so many years.
Val, I can see you're checking something out there. What have you got?
Well, I was trying to find, I'd heard, and you may know, Aleistir's last words.
That's right.
That's what I was trying to find.
I think they were, I'm perplexed. I'm somewhat perplexed. Something like that, where his actual last words. I mean, this is a gentleman that went on to write the Book of the Law, the Book of Lies. He actually went on to learn a lot of Hindu, Buddhist teachings, and he's came up with his own way of practicing. But I also think this was a man who wanted to push the boundaries in every area. He was a man who was like, don't tell me what I can't do because I'm going to do it. He didn't care that he could get in trouble for taking drugs. He didn't care that he was being bisexual. He didn't care what he was doing. He really didn't care. I mean, I know people see him as this terrible, evil man because of what he did. And obviously, we're not going into all the ins and outs of it, because we could go into some of his practicing, which I want to bring in. But he also saw that sex was sacred. It was a combination of, power, fluids joining. It was almost like a Eucharist for him. It was a sacrament, for him. Yeah. Sex was very important. And he believed through sex, he could achieve higher power. He could make his wishes and desires and also learn more. He wanted to contact his higher self. And by masturbation and other such practices, I'm sure he did in some ways, because if you're taking drugs and then you're having lots of sex and you're having, lots of orgasms, you are going to a very high place.
Well, there's a lot of energy that's generated through that.
He
I am perplexed. Satan, get out.
how interesting.
That was his last words.
That was his last words. What I want to bring up is the Golden Dawn, which was founded in 1888. And it was actually held, let me see, but I am not even beginning to pronounce all of it, but it says the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was founded in 1888, Crowley was initiated into the Outer Order of the Golden Dawn by the group's leader, Samuel Mathers. The ceremony took place in the Golden Dawn's temple, held at London's Mark Mason's Hall, where Crowley took the Magick motto and was interpreted as "Brother, I shall endure to the end." Frater perdurabo, I believe, is that Latin word for it. He also, in his time, he's using drugs ritually. He's having sex with men and women. He's learning. He went to study Buddhism. He really did push the boundary of all his knowledge, and obviously, which I can't bring it up all tonight because I'm trying to get so much in, is Boleskine House in Scotland, which is a whole new one on its own, looking at that. But he was very unpopular in his life, Val, because he was bisexual.
Yeah. Well, at that time, it was done. It was kind of a norm behind doors, but nobody was supposed to know about it.
I think his lifestyle definitely got him a bad reputation.
Sure.
And a lot of people turned their back on him and didn't want to have anything to do with him. He was taken to court. He moved around from Mexico, India, Paris. He got married. He had children. He stopped in Hong Kong, in Japan. He did a lot of things in his time. This is a man that's really done a lot of traveling. Think about the time. He's really done a lot of traveling. He's gone and met so many influential people. And if you look up Aleistir Crowley, you will see that this man did not have a boring life whatsoever. But I think he also wrote love poems as well, published as Rosa Mundi and other love songs, as well as authorizing the religious satire, Why Jesus Wept. Now, we decided not to go into all the ins and outs of all the details of what this lovely gentleman got up to, because some of it is far and bizarre. But we are talking lots of sex magic he used. Masturbation, female prostitutes. He also went into a Turkish bathhouse and had lots of encounters with lots of gentlemen. They were all documented in his diaries. He used to say that, he would very much profess to be an Irish ancestor and a supporter of Irish independence from Great Britain. He doesn't care, Val, he actually doesn't care. He's out there. You've got to admire this guy for actually pushing the boundaries and not caring.
Yeah, but I think his belief behind it is another reason he was looked down on.
Sure.
Because he didn't follow what was proper. He kind of went his own way. Therefore, it was it was not acceptable, in society or anything like that, because he was different. And, I'm not saying he was right, because obviously he wasn't, because he was, he's not a great man.
Yeah, he went on to write,
he
went on to write the book Sex Magic, The Best of the Equinox. And if you think about it, I think he wanted to bring this book out because sex magic had always been kept quiet. It was, the practice, obviously pagan, Wiccan, Druid. You're looking at people that knew that sexual energy could be utilized to reach a higher form of consciousness. In fact, even the Knights Templar were used to know about, knew about it, the Freemasons. And so when Aleistir Crowley came out with this book, he believed that everybody should know about it. So in some ways, he is pushing, like Ida, he's pushing the thing that he wants people to know about this.
Right.
He's saying to people, it's been kept quiet from you.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't necessarily think he went about it the right way.
His practice, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think just because you want to do something don't mean, it's right to do. And you're definitely not going to be accepted as exactly who you are by everybody. So, I'm sure he could have went about things differently. But I think in his mind, he really wanted people to understand that they can do what they want to do.
Against the restraints of
that
time. Because he was brought up from a background where it was like, you don't do this. This
right.
is what you do. And
so I think a little bit of it was maybe bucking the system. I'm going to do what I want to do regardless. And perhaps he just didn't go about it the right way.
Does he push your buttons, Val?
He does.
Do you find that talking about him pushes your buttons?
Well, not necessarily that. I just feel like he was in league with the wrong entities.
Mm.
So I guess that kind of bothers me.
Although we never know what kind of entities he was actually in touch with, because, everyone, there were some things that happened certainly at his house in Scotland, which people still talk about today. How do you feel about him, Carly?
I mean, it's like so with him, because he was trying to help, spread sexual knowledge, but going about it in the occultism way that he did is a little bit different than my values. But I think that trying to spread the sexual education, just like Ida Craddock did, that was very important.
Mm.
Not something that should just be hush hush and don't talk about, because how is anybody going to learn anything, or couples, work together on their marriage, or singles with other people? It's something that needs to be talked about. Needs to be spread. Otherwise, the wrong message is spread about sex, like you just see on the media, and music videos and things like that. And then, kids and people are going to learn about sex in that way, and TV shows and movies, and not the reality of what can truly happen behind closed doors with sexual intercourse or masturbation.
I mean, he practiced eroto-comatose lucidity, with which is a technique of sex magic. And in 1912, he practiced this quite a bit. And it has several variations and is used in a number of ways by different spiritual communities. A common form of the ritual uses repeated sexual stimulation, but not to orgasm, to place the individual in a state between full sleep and full wakefulness, as well as exhaustion, allowing the practitioner to commune with their God. It almost reminds me of the vision quests that the native Indians did many, many years ago. They would take, as you guys would know, the drugs to heighten their senses, to commune and see things. It's almost like he's trying to do that, isn't he, Val?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the equal different. You know what I mean? Because the Native Americans use the peyote, and then they go to the wilderness until they're, beyond exhausted. And then they are able to, meet with their spirit guides.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the parallel of it. You know, taking the drugs and kind of altering your mind in order to, you know, make contact with the deities or the entities that you want to.
And if you think about like people watching this, whenever they're watching it, if you're in a relationship where you're having sex and you obviously experience orgasm, we just think, oh my God, that was amazing, that was great, I feel great relief, I can go to sleep now, and my day's really good or whatever afterwards. But they were seeing sex as a greater thing to contact, to connect with your higher self, to connect with a higher self in lots of ways. And I think he believes that when he's doing it, it must have been exhausting, because you're totally keep bringing yourself to that point and stopping, bringing yourself and keeping yourself at that point, which I don't know about you, Carly, but there's only so many times you want to get to that point before you go, yeah, no, I really don't want to keep doing this. I want to get to the finishing line. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. A little bit, and then that can lead me into, talking about tantric some, because that is not actually the point of tantric. It's to achieve spiritual and energetic contact, not always an orgasm.
Yes.
It's
have we ever practiced it, ladies? Have any of us ever practiced tantric?
Not on purpose.
I've given it a go. I have to say I have.
A little bit.
Just a tiny bit, yeah. And for me, it was like, I don't know about you, Carly, but it was like, oh my God, like really? Because obviously we have to actually get to our higher self, we have to work through the chakras. And obviously with tantric and sexual magic, you're going from the sacral all the way up to open yourself up, like the flower, to commune with whoever's going to talk to you, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And using orgasm to do it, or pre-orgasm, Val.
Well, that kind of goes with the pagan traditions. The magical rituals of pagan tradition. And I'm just going to read this because I couldn't sum it up. I tried. The magical rituals. I found this article, and it's actually pretty, are surrounded by mystery, and some are considered by religion as harmful, for they take away the power of the church and put it back into the hands of each person, hence respecting free will. Like paganism itself, sex magic is the target of misinterpretation and controversy. However, it is also the object of fascination and interest. Is it that our subconscious knows that there's more to the story? Something beautiful and powerful meant to help us transcend with proper use. Every magic ritual, and they're spelling it with the K, the magic with the K also, has an objective: to change the current flow of energy within our 3D reality, or at the very least to influence it so it may take a fluid change of course, or to continue its course with more power added to it. The use of magic implies being able to move forces, powers, or energies with the use of thought. We create reality, but often no one teaches us how to do this. Hence, rituals are powerful, for our mind has been trained to understand them and utilize them to achieve the magical objective. When we climax, we release powerful energies which can be directed or channeled to achieve an objective. During the moment of climax, our subconscious is wide open. As such, it becomes receptive to reprogramming of old beliefs. healing of traumas, the developing of new patterns of behavior, and it can project our intentions out into the universe in order for them to become a reality. There's different types of sex magic, depending on whether it's tradition, culture, or a geographical area. Yet their common goal remains unchangeable. The Celts, like the Tantrics, did not consider words are hard today.
I know.
Did not consider sexuality should be used only for reproductive purposes or animalistic sensory gratification. Instead, they associated sexuality with the mystery of life, with the fertility of life itself, and with the presence and activation of its primitive and primordial forces. They did not view sexuality with reservations, prejudices, nor did they abuse it. They considered sexuality worthy of celebration. I can't remember, I don't know.
So what we're talking about is that
the Wiccan ritual, the Great Rite. That's, it kind of comes from the pagan. I can't even think of the word. The Yule celebration.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Some of these words tonight, I tell you, it's really weird. We've never had this problem when we go over the words so much as we will tonight. I mean,
I know.
What we're trying to say is with sexual magic, it's mostly an out-of-body experience, and it's a mental state. And it doesn't mean just opening your legs and having sex, but opening portals where we're trying to engage with our higher self, our higher being, the divine, whatever which way you want to look at it. And sometimes that would actually involve not having sex, actually abstaining from it, because if you think about it, me and Val would know a little bit about that this lately, is that basically
intentionally or unintentionally
is that if you're having sex all the time, it's not as powerful. If you're holding back and you're not having sex, it's all about controlling the energy. So it's a bit like teasing. Sexual stimulation reaches peak and you want to have a bit more. It feels really good. I want to have more and more and more. It releases all the intensifying feelings, like tantric, what you were saying there with Carly. Yoga as well. People that know Kundalini would absolutely know that would be very, very similar. Following the energies through the chakras and firing each one as if it was a spark, So what it's actually saying is that if you don't have sex and then you go, you literally, it's going to be more powerful because you've not had it for a while. And we all know what it's like, you've not.
I should be like the Hulk. Saying.
Yeah.
Saying.
But it's basically like
putting that out there.
We're gonna have to be doing some of this on our own, Val.
Apparently.
We're gonna have to be channeling our own sex magic, which get our heart's desire.
You'll see like a light going up. You'll know I broke through.
Also, just to give people an idea, is like if you want to do a full-on sex magic spells, know what your goal is, put your writings down.
You have to have your intentions correct.
And
correct.
You must know the spiritual.
Not correct, but correct.
You must know the spiritual laws governing the world to practice sex magic. And I found one of the best definitions of it was the conscious use of sexual energy, using the whole of the natural and universal energies together.
I was reading about a particular sexual magical practitioner who says you should make a grave for the items, because as any good white witch, or even the other kind of witchcrafts, pagan, etc., you use different stuff in your spells, whether it's candles, whether it's oils, whether it's fur, whether it's feathers, whatever, whatever you're doing, put them together, make a little grave for them, bury them, sometimes under the full moon naked, and chant them as if they're a song, and then place them under the mattress when you have sex. Do not underestimate the power of masturbation as a way to change sex magic amulets. And then the most interesting thing she says is that you realize all you actually need is yourself. After all, women's bodies hold enough magic in them to make dozens of spells 1,000,000 times over. Shall I read that again? Women's bodies hold enough magic to make dozens of spells 1,000,000 times over. I'm just saying.
I will tell you this. I found this from Greek mythology. Zeus and Hera. Does everybody knows who Zeus and Hera are?
Yeah.
Had an argument about which gender experienced more pleasure during sex. Zeus believed women experienced more pleasure, while Hera believed the opposite. To settle the dispute, they asked Tiresias, a prophet who had experienced both, for his opinion. Tiresias replied that women experienced sex 9 times more pleasure than men. Tiresias replied that, I already read that, sorry. Pleasure than men, which enraged Hera and caused her to blind him.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
Zeus felt bad about the situation and gave Tiresias the gifts of prophecy and long life.
Ooh.
So Hera lost, and so she just blinded him.
Interesting topic about the rituals of certain things. I was reading about one of the rituals where Mr. Crowley believed that any semen he believed was elixir produced by orgasm must be consumed by the ritualist, and he would call it a cake of light. That's what he would call it. So, if any fluid that came out of your body, you had to be consuming it, and he would call it, as I said, the cakes of light. This would involve a biscuit containing either menstrual blood or semen or vaginal fluids, and you would consume that because it was powerful. It came out.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, not exactly my choice, but it was powerful. It came out of your body. Therefore, he would argue that it was, this is what you should do, and it was an elixir. And so many people, when you talk about the fluids that come out of us as human beings, are they? I mean, are they very powerful? Some could argue that they are. But I also think it's almost like vampirism in some ways, isn't it? When you think about it, because certainly having menstrual blood and obviously consuming, I would imagine they consumed blood as well. I'm sure there was animal blood along the way that was consumed, and also human, I would imagine as well. Trying to take themselves to a higher level. And I just feel like, wow, I don't know if, don't get me wrong, I love sex, but I don't know if I want to go to that higher points.
I think I'm going to let that one go.
Yeah. And I think that's where Crowley gets this press of being almost into devil worship, because of using the fluids, sacrifice and everything like that. Obviously the rituals, all the symbols and everything, that obviously his house, which we must come back and look at another time in Scotland. But also there would have been, I would imagine, quite a lot of sexual exhaustion, Apparently, in the Lilith ritual, the room was draped in crimson and black, music which inspires dark emotions, chanting or horrific sounds should be played, and images of Lilith should hang in the room. I mean, we're going into dark stuff, absolutely. Yeah. So it's very,
especially with Lilith,
Yes. But he seems to be the fact that he wants to try, like he's been brought up in this religious background, but he's gone full circle. Carly, did you ever know about sexual magic, or was it something that you actually found out, just sort of, discovered?
Yeah, I had heard about it growing up over the years, learning about Wiccan and everything. I didn't know about it to the extent as I have now. Which I also find a lot more fascinating, and I'll be doing more research on it, because another thing on it is that it merges our inner divinity and
bring your mic forward, Carly. Your mic.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you.
I don't know. And then they connected all of a sudden. Can you hear me now?
It's really quiet.
Let me disconnect them. Hold on a second.
That's okay. Don't worry. So we're looking here about I can't get over that biscuit, actually. That just makes me feel, can you imagine that? Like, here is a biscuit made of menstrual blood.
Well, I mean, I know people even today that make bread from it, and they think that it's, I'm gonna pass.
But isn't sex, I mean, we were talking about how powerful sex is last week, weren't we? We were really talking about how powerful it was. And Crowley came up with he believed that his way of belief was, do what thou wilt, which basically means seek
do what you want to do.
Seek to align yourself with whatever your will is, right? Here she is. She's back. Hello, love.
Let's try that again.
That's so much better. So we're come back, Carly. Right. So you were saying, when did you discover sexual magic?
I mean, I learned a little bit about it at a very young age when I had started reading up on Wiccan. So I was around 12 years old when I learned a wee bit about it, but yeah, I hadn't learned as much as I have now. And even furthermore with like tantric, I did not realize that it actually involved breathwork, meditation, and yoga all combined.
Well, it's all to do with breathing, and obviously with sex, when you have orgasm as well, the more you're breathing in and out, the power is more powerful, isn't it? It's like actually learning how your body responds and how it reacts. I mean, I don't know about you, Val, but to be honest, talking about the power of orgasm, the more that you stop yourself from having it, and then eventually when you do, it's so much more powerful, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think you just kind of build that energy up. I think there's a stopping point, though. Like you said, I think there's only so far you can go until it just, you're just not going to get there.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to know how far you can go, with that. But I think it depends on your intention. It kind of makes all other parts more sensitive.
Yes.
To when you kind of build up that energy.
I mean, throughout history, the women form is seen in photograph, portraits, paintings, and in later date photographs. It is seen as beautiful. It is, and you might go around to places like Hampton Court Palace and beautiful figurines, naked, full bosom, quite well built women, and women have always been seen as this beautiful image. And so we're talking mainly about from sex magic from a woman's point of view, but from a guy's point of view, I would imagine bringing themselves to almost orgasm, but not, and then again, and not, and again, and not, might be quite uncomfortable.
That is called
Go on, say it.
blue balls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
And from what I hear, is not pleasant.
I think every woman out there would know somewhere in their lifetime, Carly, we've heard a guy talk about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
The blue balls.
We're guilty of it. Causing it. Not completing it.
Not intentionally.
Wow. Why are we laughing? I find it interesting that in today's world, how Aleistir Crowley, Ida Craddock would see things in today's world, where he believed there was 3 forms of sexual magic: the autoerotic, homosexual, and heterosexual, 3. So he believed in them. And Ida, well, I guess, would she have been really proud to see where we are today? You know, especially with some of the things that's going on in America right now with women's rights for abortion and contraception being taken from them as well. So, you know, there is an argument that the things that she was trying to promote for women to have the choice are being taken from us today.
Yeah. And
that's
a topic I won't get into.
No, but what I'm saying, using it as an example, she, even in the early Victorian times, was promoting this, trying to give us this option, trying to say, like, this should be a woman's right as well. And even today, we're still fighting with these topics, or even talking about these topics. And it seems, we seem to have gone round in a very large circle. And I guess that's what life is, continuing going round in the circle of it.
Well, I think certain things that are still going on today, they're just so controversial, and so many people have so many different beliefs on them that I don't know that they'll ever be, settled. I think it'll continue to go on from now on, because there's so many different belief systems and so many different opinions by people that there's certain things we're never going to be able to agree on.
I agree, and I hear you, but the one thing I have to say is that I do believe all of those things should be given to each woman. Should have the right to say yes or no, whatever she wants to do in her life, whatever she doesn't want to do in her life. We should be able to have that choice, and I think whether it's to do it or not do it,
but I don't think it's going to come to a conclusion as far as laws, things like that. There's never going to be a conclusion.
No.
And if nothing else, because there's so many different scenarios, that it's not just black and white.
No.
It's
absolutely.
It's such a gray area, and such a large gray area, that I don't think that as many different sides as there are, it'll ever come to one decision.
But I think, what gets me is that, like, people like Marie Stopes over in the UK, who obviously founded the Marie Stopes Association to help women with miscarriage and abortion and contraception. They've had men go against them to stop them from doing this. It's not, and it's like they've been hounded by men trying to take control of our own body, regardless of what we want to do. And I still believe that as women, we should have the rights.
Well, I think it's kind of changed a lot from, the past, because, back 1800s, men would kind of push them to go get a termination, because it probably wasn't his wife, so, it's kind of, it's still within that gray area, but it's kind of flipped on that side. Now the men are more vocal about it.
Yeah.
Back then it was just, well, you need to do something about it. You know.
Why is it over history, ladies, women who enjoy sex, want to practice sex magic, you know, whatever, I've been labeled as terrible, you know, as you know, even ladies of the night. Why is it, Carly, that people have a problem with women being in charge of their own sexuality and what they do?
Honestly, in my opinion, because men still want us under their thumb. They want us. They want to control us. They want to make the decisions for us. They don't want us to be doing it. Look at what's going on in government today. It's very evident and obvious that they still want women to be seen but not heard.
Very good point.
But think about how it's changed from the 1800s, when if you were sexually promiscuous, your husband would just have you put in an insane asylum.
Yes.
You know, if you were outside of what he wanted, or what society thought was, you know, the right way, they would just lock you up and forget you. You know, that's not the, you know, I'm sure it's still done, but not that way.
It's interesting when you look over the years, and we've never done this subject, but maybe we should look at it in the future, with the world of prostitution over the years. Look at Pompeii, Rome, and the Wild West, where they had the, you know, the madam and the.
Wouldn't you hate to see one of the Wild West win? Woo, I bet they were.
Yeah. And you know, even the brothels in London as well. It's like, you know, here were these women who were sexually experienced, completely in some ways in their power, but also having to be reliant. And men would flock to see them. Men would go back at time and time again, right?
Yeah, I started to say, can you imagine what those places would have been like without those?
Exactly.
I mean, you would have had some men that were, I guarantee you would have more murders, you know, because those men couldn't get those frustrations out.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what I was talking about, you know, the doctor told him you need to get it somewhere else because you can't risk her getting pregnant again.
And as Carly said right from the start, when she was looking at Ida Craddock, it's about, she wanted to bring more sexual experience people in their marriage. So if they enjoyed sex more and they let themselves go, you know, men would be more happy and wouldn't perhaps stray.
But see, it wasn't acceptable for a husband and wife then to act like a man and a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had to have, you know, your sexual relationship with your husband and wife had to be, it was scrutinized as well. You know, I'm sure a lot did things that were not known. They didn't, you know, the guy didn't go to the club and talk about it because it wasn't seen as proper. But what you did at the whorehouse, it didn't matter.
I want to bring in a scene which was on last week's House of the Dragon, where one of the characters is in a whorehouse and with the madam, you know, head of the, and it seems no matter what we look at, even in television throughout the years, you know, women are there to help men feel so much better, you know, like, you know, relieve them, listen to them, you know, let them use them for their own sexual fantasies, etc., etc. Right. And yet that shows that in some ways, are we the more powerful sex?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't see like brothels of men for women. I'm not seeing it happen.
You know, well, for one thing, we were not allowed to have that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, men have fought wars over females.
Yeah.
You know, they've done things that they normally wouldn't do. You know,
Helen of Troy being one.
right. I mean, men have killed over, you know, someone, a woman saying, "This is the only way we can be together." So, yeah, I think we are the more powerful sex, but men don't want to acknowledge that.
Ding, ding, ding.
Right.
Carly agrees, right?
Now, some do. Some will say, yeah, of course, a woman is more powerful than a man, but not. I think it's psychologically more powerful, not like saying government and the physical side, but more so the psychological side. You know, because we can manipulate, you know, men with our sexual side. And they may be the stronger sex, but, you know, the psychological is not the same.
Carly, when I was younger, it was like dinned into me that, you know, be careful what you do in you know, don't be sleeping with this, that and the other, right? You know, I wasn't taught from my background, and that's no one's fault, but it's the different generations. I wasn't taught that women are powerful and that our own bodies can be incredible power. I mean, as Professor Bowers just put in here, the vagina is the most powerful thing on the earth. Why aren't women in the world? Well, we're trying to, but it seems the penis overrules us quite a lot. But it's very, very true. Like, I wasn't taught to that was powerful. And it's only as I've got older and as time's gone on, I've actually discovered how powerful that is. Were you taught that, or being the fact that you're a little bit younger than me, but were you taught that, or did it something that just came, you know, to you?
It was not something that I was taught either. It was something that came through me, through knowledge, through personal experience, and educating myself. And especially as I got older, it was something that I grew to know, you know, how powerful it truly can be.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like, you know, I look at my nieces growing in a different world, and they view sex completely different these days. And they're having sex younger, which I don't always think is the greatest thing to do, considering they say that the actual uterus doesn't stop growing till at least 16. But it's, or it comes to full power at that time. But it's like, I wasn't thinking about sex when I was young. I wasn't taught it. I wasn't, you know, at school, it was all about bunny rabbits and frogs. You know, that was the time I was in. And I remember just before I left, they were teaching sex education with the condom and the wooden dick, you know, that, you know, this is how you do it, because AIDS had come along, obviously, then. And I think women now are starting to turn around and go, we are powerful. We are in control of our body. We don't need a man for sex. If we don't, I mean, it's lovely, don't get me wrong. If we want to, we can, but we can reach, we can do this whole magical sexual thing all on our own,
Right.
and achieve a higher form of it. And I think obviously using the bobs as well. So I think somebody actually wrote that somewhere. I think it was Rip. Invest in batteries. We have them now. And I think that in some ways it's a wonderful revolution that Ida began all those years ago by saying, actually, it's okay to masturbate. It's okay to, if you want to use contraception. You know, it's okay to be powerful. She was beyond her time.
Yeah. Well,
and it's amazing. Sorry, Val, go for it.
Oh, that's okay. Have you all ever heard of the Sheila non-gigs?
Tell us.
Sheila nah, I can't say it. Sheila nah gigs.
Yeah.
They are medieval stone carvings of naked women with emphasized genitalia. The carvings are often found above church doorways. This is in Ireland. And are thought to have been carved between 12th and 17th centuries. In Romanesque, the warning of these carvings, it's a warning against lust. It's kind of, it's kind of reminding people of the, the depravity of people and all this. The Celtic pagan, it was more to keep the evil out.
Yep.
The act of women flashing their genitalia has been believed to scare off demons since the ancient Greek times.
Oh my goodness.
Pre-Christian folk goddess. It's also believed to be a folk goddess, a pre-Christian folk goddess, and her exaggerated vulva, and I'll show you a picture here in a second, represents fertility and life-giving powers. So there's several different meanings that they've come across through the history of it since the 12th century. And I don't know if you can see these or not. But that's what they look like.
Oh, wow. Weird.
Interesting.
And I also read that they were put on, the way they kept the demons out was that the demons with their depravity would focus on that. They would lust after the female form instead of going into the church. So, it would kind of distract instead of, scare them off. It would just distract them.
So it's interesting that women have, by the church over the years and other so-called demonized, especially, and I want to bring in the subject of witchcraft and ritual with sexual magic, which is something we haven't looked at yet, but it's actually being in a coven, using sexual magic and as a ritual. And also it's not just in Wiccan, obviously pagan. Some could bring up other such places that do it as well. But women, if they were seen as witches, were believed to have supernatural powers. And they often feel that, over time they were highly sexual women that were wanted to be bedded by men or bewitched by them. But there was a story I read, which is kind of funny, about a broom, about I can't believe I actually thought this, how they thought that a witch or a woman used a hallucinogenic ointment, which was then rubbed onto the broom and then inserted into her, which made her think she was flying. Now,
that would have had to have been a hallucinogenic
subject, but it's like
it would have had to have been some kind of hallucinogen.
Yes, but this is what they extracted a lot of this from the witch hunts across Europe. And a lot of these were done under torture, but they talked about how, they bewitched men, they had sex with them, she bewitched me. If a guy had sex with a woman and it didn't want to go down the right way, or it went down the wrong way, she was accused of being a witch, like she bewitched me, she took me to bed, and all this kind of stuff. Women seem to be used in over the years, Carly, as we're almost, demonic in some ways.
We're the scapegoat. Just blame us for everything. It's the easy way out.
It's all the vagina's fault.
Yep.
It's all the vagina's fault, isn't it? Was it that way?
In 700 BC, in ancient Greece, the temple of Aphrodite. Yeah, that's the temple.
Right.
Sacred sex was a sexual ritual I'm telling you. Consisting of sexual intercourse or other sexual activity customary in the ancient world. It has been confused with the term sacred prostitution. Payment for services was normally not involved. It was rather performed by the context of religious worship, fertility rite, divine marriage, promote peace, and in some Greek city-states to welcome guests, messengers, merchants, and officials. Around 700 BC in ancient Greece, sacred sex was well known in the city of Corinth, where the temple of Aphrodite, which is what I showed you, the goddess of love, employed some 1,000 women.
Wow.
The city was renowned for the temple of the priestess. Those women were literally regarded as goddesses, often thought to be immortal, commonly assumed to have personalities and to possess consciousness, intellects, desires, and emotions comparable but usually superior to those of humans. They were highly respected and treated accordingly. By the way, Aphrodite was created from the sea, from the foam that came from the sea after, let's see, what was his name? I never can remember his name. After Cronus cut the Uranus's genitals off and threw them into the sea.
Good God.
Aphrodite sprang out of the foam from where he threw those in. So, I mean, it was kind of from the beginning that she was the goddess of all that stuff.
So before I go into take us into the afterglow, I just wanted to bring up this to end this kind of subject, although we're inviting people to come in and join us on this. In sex magic, orgasms are the ultimate magical force. They can help to align the spirit with the body using sexual energy to manifest personal goals. It can be practiced alone or with a partner and can help to cleanse your body or reconnect with the spiritual and physical self and reclaim your sexuality to heal from past trauma. This is done by setting an intention, anything from finding love, must write this down, to strengthen pre-existing connections or cutting cords like with an ex, and release this energy into the universe. So as you're releasing the orgasm, you're putting out that intention. Really got to try this, but make sure what is clear in your mind before you get started. I'm going to put in the link here to invite anyone that wants to come in and join us. Let's bring this up and put it in here.
Yeah, I would like to hear what the guys think.
I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to take us into Afterglow for a moment, and I'm very interested to see what, as you say, some of the guys think, or any other ladies that want to come and join us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because we're open to all kinds here. Let me just bring it up. I'm trying, like Scotty was saying the other night, he couldn't find his. Here it is. I've got it. Right. There we go. Afterglow. been a difficult subject tonight of all these words. Like, I've honestly felt at some times when we did this, my screen was flickering.
I'm telling you, it's hard for me to talk anyway. So
trouble talking the last like 2 days. I was saying yesterday I can't talk.
My screen was flickering, and also, like, you know, trying to get some of these words out, I was like, oh my God, I could do it. But as soon as I got on here, I was like, but really,
yeah,
really
no.
I
have to stop and think about how to do them. I'll say them.
Yeah.
And I usually will most likely screw them up anyway. So
I really like that you had Ida Craddock, Carly, because you being from Chicago, it kind of felt a little bit more personal. Because, you know, this is where this lady was, or at least, and it's been a tiring week. We've all had our difficult weeks, but this is a fascinating subject, and we are going into another fascinating subject this week, which we all talked about last week, which is witchcraft. A lot of people have been waiting a long time for us to talk about witchcraft, and next week you will get your wish, because we are talking about witchcraft and witches. And when Val and Carly and I talked about this, we can't possibly do everything in one go. Like, we couldn't talk about Aleistir Crowley and all his stuff in one go. It's far too much. But there were a couple of things that we talked about with Salem, looking at the Salem witches of Salem, and also you have the Pendle witches from the United Kingdom as well, which, when, you know, these are two different ones. And then also looking at modern witchcraft and where it came from to where we are today. I think and that's why we've kind of been aiming the last couple of shows to build up to get, because we're looking into magic and power and energy. And I'm really kind of excited that we're starting to look at these subjects. What about you, Carly?
I'm very excited too. I can't wait to discuss these things on the show with you guys and everybody.
Val, I know it's something that you've chatted about before on Myth, Paranormal, and Legend, etc.
Myth, Legends, and the Paranormal. You'll get it one of these days.
I'm doing it here, and it's
You'll get it one day.
You've talked about it quite a few times on your show, haven't you?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. And like I said on my show last night, I've done several things that interest me.
Yeah. And
I think that other people, you know, perhaps they just haven't thought about, you know, that, and it just enlightens them a little bit to where they don't have to look at everything with, you know, with the fear that you can understand something without, you know, going out and practicing it and opening yourself up.
To bring the positivity as well.
Absolutely.
Of the craft, because I think the craft in most films and television is seen to be a terrible thing. You know, it's a bad thing.
But I mean, that's the thing. You have to teach people because it can be.
Yeah.
You know, if you go into something and you think, oh, this is just fun, and you don't know what you're doing or you don't know what to watch out for, you can mess up.
Yes, it's always respectful, no matter what you do.
Absolutely.
But I think it's also looking at, because when we were talking about sexual magic, we also didn't touch voodoo either, because at the same time, all of this, you know, we've only just touched a real small part of it.
Right.
And there were so many subjects that you and I and Carly talked about last week, about the things that we want to talk about. But this witchcraft one, we were going to do in Halloween last year, but sadly we were sick, so we could not do it. And Henry, of course, died just before Halloween, so I wasn't in any fit state to do it. So this has been a long time coming, so I'm really excited to finally be bringing up the craft, and looking at practitioners of sexual magic. Last week, looking at the subject we did as well. You know, sex plays an awful lot in all these.
Well, I mean, I think we all realize how much energy is expelled.
Yeah.
And that feeling that you have, I mean, that's what That's what people have sex for.
I was just looking
You
back
know,
at this week's show. What was it? Sacred Sex, wasn't it? Sacred Sex.
so, you know, there is a lot of energy to tap into,
Yeah.
you know, from both people, and then they come together, and of course you're going to have, you know, twice the energy, twice the
It's interesting.
euphoria.
Carly, we did a woman's intuition, then we did sacred sex, now we've done sexual magic, and then it's bringing us up to this. And what we're trying to actually show is the power of women over the ages, and how we haven't seen ourselves as powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's something very important for us to discuss and realize, because even now in talking about it, it's like we're realizing how powerful we are just in talking about the sexual magic itself.
But I think people, you know, younger women, you know, as I'll speak for myself, as I've gotten older, you kind of realize it. But when you're younger, you know, if someone doesn't tell you, there's not a whole lot of us that realize how much power you do have.
Yeah.
You know, you do have that power. Say if you're married, you do have that power to turn your husband's head to a decision that you want. You know, and it's not by saying, oh, this is what we're going to do, or, you know, anything like that. We have ways of making them realize, you know, that's the right thing. Or in my case, you kind of make them think they're the ones that come up with it. And that's pretty much the only way that they'll do it. But we have ways of doing that.
We've not I mean, if you think about women our age, Val, we're only learning this kind of in the last decade or so. We've missed out on so many years of actually standing in our power, which I actually think, looking back to when I was in that difficult relationship as well, I could have gone out. You know, if I'd realized I was more powerful and the vagina was more powerful, I could have actually tapped into that power.
Yeah, but see, that's what I was saying. If you just, you know, women will learn it on their own. But it takes being through that experience and all this. But if the older generation tells, you know, teaches the younger generation, they may not believe us, but it's in their head, so possibly they'll find out earlier. So they will be able to do what we wish we could have.
I think, Carly, as well, as we get older, I don't want to use the word demand, but I think as we get older, we get a feeling in ourselves where we didn't have when we were younger. And I think it comes from experience, where we're like, actually, you know, I have got this power. And, you know, and when obviously, like men, and I use this as an expression we have over here, when the men are sniffing around you when you're younger, certainly from my generation, we were kind of like, oh, no, we can't go down that road. We can't.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize I was sexually powerful. I didn't realize that there was the magic of the vagina. And, you know, I didn't know any of this. And so I really didn't tap into it or exploit it or use it. And I had a boyfriend right at the beginning of when I actually lost the virginity, who actually embraced that and actually said, you know, you are amazing, you can do anything. And that was like, I never met a guy actually since then who probably was so productive of it.
See, that's a good name for a show.
What one? The power of the vagina?
The magical vagina.
The magical. I think it's that one, isn't it? The cup, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Because obviously the star, I think that's the man and that's the woman. And also, if you think about it, even remembering the film The Da Vinci Code, when it brought up about the fact that Jesus married and had a daughter called, I believe, Sarah, and Mary Magdalene was his wife, and yet again another woman demonized by men to actually not being who she probably was. And it's just, even now in 2024, this is still happening to us. We're still not realizing our power. What's going on?
Well, I mean, even back during the witch hunts, they blamed women for forcing the men to do certain things.
Terrible.
If we had that much power, you think we'd let them hang us?
Drown us.
Come on.
Burn us.
You know, I mean, that's stupid.
I mean, truly, we are the great grandchildren of the women they didn't burn, or at least.
And it didn't have to be, you know, these women cloaked in black and living out by themselves. It was anyone and everyone. And anything the men did, they would just blame it on us.
I also think it's good to look at where the pointy hat comes from, and the
I have to show you all this.
The pointy hat, the broom, the cauldron. Where do we get all these pictures? And this is something we'll look at as well next week. Oh my goodness, how beautiful is that? Aww. We're not texting anyone, actually. We're actually bringing up information. It's so hard because we've got it on here, we've got it on there, and we're fighting between the two. But for me, ladies, it's an interesting thing that with ritual in witchcraft, obviously the coven comes together and it's a heightened energy as well. And there's this whole view about naked women, you know, dancing around the fire, chanting, getting themselves into a frenzy, of course, because it's like, you know, producing the energy to bring themselves to a heightened state so that the magic works. So it isn't just one-to-one doing it. We've also got it in rituals as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Wiccan, of which, you know, there's so much we had to pick and choose what we went into tonight, because there is so much. But I think that ritual intimacy, as I want to call it, and we're talking about sex, there is sex that does happen under ritual in occults. You know, it does happen.
Well, they had back during the what was it called, the Yule celebration, celebrating Yule. They had, the Romans would close all the businesses for the whole month of December.
Yep.
And have giant orgies like for a month.
Bada boom.
And, you know, and that was, you know, another thing, not just orgies, but the laws were forgiven. You know, all the laws that, you know, it was illegal to be homosexual. It was illegal to, you know, to have sex with someone that wasn't, you know, yours.
Yeah.
All of that was gone for the whole month. You could pretty much do anything you wanted to do. All the law was suspended in that celebration. So, you know, I mean, that's a big thing when the whole place, the whole of Rome was just closed, and everybody just went and done what they wanted to.
You know, when I think about orgies, Carly, the one thing I keep going through is venereal disease, gonorrhea, syphilis. All these words just keep coming through in my head, thinking, oh God, can you just imagine how rife? You know, everyone's like at an orgy banging each other. And they had a program on TV. Did you ever watch it called Mary and George? Have you seen it?
I have not.
Really good series. My God, it shows France and even England with under James I, and James I was known to be a homosexual, and it was like, you know, it was rife. But I think but since we've been talking about these subjects, I was going to ask you ladies each. It's made me look at sex and as in a more powerful, intimate thing that I want, and not just like, you know, for relief or just, you know, it's actually, no, I actually want it to be amazing. I want it to be more powerful, and perhaps I sold myself short over the years. I mean, don't be wrong, we've all had quickies, we've all had whatever it suits us, but I don't know about you, but it's having this effect on me. What about you, Carly, and then Val?
Yeah, it is definitely, because, like I said, tantric was something I delved in a little bit, but not anything to what I researched now. And so I'm honestly truly fascinated by it more than I had been before. And I'm definitely going to be putting it into practice, because meditation and breath work are something that I already do, and yoga. So why not combine the three with sexual energy?
How about yourself, Val?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just got a cattail in my mouth. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that, if we can heighten that, not necessarily only spiritual, but physical as well. Why not? Why not get as much out of it as we can?
Has it made you, by talking about it and looking at it, has it made you look at your own life and realize that you didn't get what you think you should have gotten? You want more when it comes from being certainly in your own sexuality.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we could all go with that. We could all, even the the older we get, we're not dead. So, I think it's never too late to start getting the most out of things that we can.
Oh, I remember my sister and I had a conversation with my mum about, the battery operated boyfriend, and my mum actually being completely shocked by, my God, really? Because obviously different generation, different sees it. And we're talking about Wiccans and pagans and druids and rituals and everything like that. And also we have to touch on the other side of it as well, which is, there are also satanic rituals as well, which obviously there is a lot done through the energy of sex as well. It's not just, there's so many of, and also I have to read this comment where it says, pagans usually don't include intercourse in their rituals, but you do have both sides of the coin there. You also have the white magic, and then you also have the satanic as well.
Well, a lot of times they have ritualistic sex, so it's not actual intercourse, but it's kind of like spiritual intercourse from the priest and the priestess.
Yes.
So it's not the physical act; it's more spiritual, or what am I trying to say? It's not spiritual, but it's representative sex instead of actual.
So it's like almost like the invoking the male and female energy, isn't
Their
it?
energies are entwining instead of the actual physical form.
See, tantric is an ancient Hindu practice, which I didn't know that it was Hindu, which means the weaving and expansion of energy. And both tantric intercourse and sex magic use intimacy and mind and body connection to expand consciousness and join together masculine and feminine energy. The main difference with tantric is to connect the two lovers, whereas in sex magic, their purpose is to use that connection to fuel another magical purpose. So in tantric, you're trying to bring yourself closer. With sex magic, it's like, I have a purpose for that. There's something I want to achieve with that. And I don't know about you, but we've all had moments in sex where you're like, you're enjoying it, and all of a sudden something will pop into your head and you'll be like, oh no, don't want to think about that right now. Please, I'm going to write them. No. And the next thing you know, you're sitting there, you're like, no, this is the wrong moment at the wrong time. Can you imagine then if you're doing sex magic? You are trying really, really hard to bring this to happen. All of a sudden that thought pops into your head and you're like, oh my God, Oh my God. But it's very, what they were actually saying here is that it may be difficult to hold any clear thought during climax. And you have to have a clear mind to reach that energy during the ritual, since that is the intent for any kind of magic, and to hold on at the strongest point of release, obviously the orgasm. If you forget to do so, the energy raised won't be as focused. That doesn't mean the climax shouldn't be enjoyed. It should just be enjoyed with a purpose. So what they're saying is, if you're sending out a purpose and then something comes into your head and you're thinking of something else, it's not going to do that. You've got to have a clear mind. And I don't know about you, but how often do we have a clear mind when we're having sex?
Well, maybe to start with.
Well, I don't know about you. My mind's going into a lot of places at the beginning.
You know, the Druidic practices, they had the Druidic priestess in the Welsh countryside described the 9 stages of the sex magic ritual. And the first is the awakening, augmentation, intensification, quickening, orgasm and projection, continuance, relaxation, scattering, and gift. So those are the 9 stages of these.
Yeah.
The Celtic Druid sex ritual. You know, so you have to focus. I mean, you know, like you were saying, how many people are going to focus on, okay, there's the first one, you know. I don't know how, I guess you would have to practice and learn how to, you know, close your mind off to certain things and open it up to other things.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Carly. When I was saying that, I was thinking other things pop into my head. I wasn't thinking about the shopping and what's on TV, but I'm actually not thinking about just having a clear mind when I'm having sex. I'm thinking probably completely naughty thoughts and, you know, taking it completely a different way. I rarely have an open mind going, okay, so these people that are practicing sexual magic are really having to like put the work in it. And obviously when they took, or rather with Aleistir Crowley, when they took drugs, maybe it was easier in that point to have that mind because it took them.
Well, so it's not just necessarily focused on the ending.
Yes.
You're focused, but on the present, not on the outcome.
Yeah. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Carly?
It's actually something that I've been putting into practice myself prior to even researching this for a while. It was something that I was working on, was becoming more mindful and becoming more present in the moment and making sure that I wasn't going into sex with my mind and my ADHD spiraling in a million thousand thoughts. I would go into it with my husband clearing my mind to prevent that from happening, because that would happen to me before. You know, you're sitting there enjoying the moment, and then all of a sudden you're like, did I do this? I got to go do that now? What about this? You start thinking all these thoughts, and the next thing you know, your mind's off somewhere else. So that's,
and then you're like, start again. Let's just go back and start. Wait, no, just start again. I'm not in the moment.
And he's like, damn, I'm getting lockjaw.
Interesting point before we end. I just wanted to look at the Eucharist, which we talked about and touched very basic. The Eucharist in sex magic. The fluids produced, lovely way to end it. The fluids produced in these rituals are referred to as the Eucharist. Now, obviously, that's used in modern day Christianity as well. Just like in Christianity, the Eucharist is a ritual, is considered consecrated. It is believed to contain powerful magical energy and can be used in several ways. As previously mentioned, they may be used to anoint a talisman or an actual person. They can be ingested in their natural form so that the power is absorbed into the body, or even put into wine or spread on food And for your information, menstrual matter can be put into this category as well. Interesting point.
I don't think I want any blood jam. Thank you.
I think that I would argue that one. However, saying that, it's been an interesting topic. I hope a lot of people have enjoyed listening to us tonight. We are only touching on a really small part of this.
It's just the top of the iceberg.
If you look into it, it's huge. And we're very careful that we cover all sides, but also without going sometimes into certain details, which some people may not like to listen to. But thanks to people like Ida Craddock, Aleistir Crowley, they have helped in all different ways to bring the world to where it is now, with a very open mind and more open than it ever was. Next week, ladies, as I said, we talked about witchcraft. We haven't got a title, but we will be out. We will be looking at witchcraft, and not just witches, almost like, where did witchcraft come from? What are the symbols behind, as I said, the broom, the hat, the cauldron, and also modern day witchcraft, because sadly there are some countries and some cultures that still do terrible things to human beings, accusing them of witchcraft, which is really, really sad. Now, last week, we all gave ourselves a little task to do, and we didn't do it. So we're going to try again. Also, and I'm going to have a word with that young Scotty, because he didn't promote Wicked Women tonight. So I will be spanking him for that. Notice I said spanking.
Get ready, Scotty.
But we are going to promote 2 shows this week. We're going to be promoting the lovely Val. Val, give us a bit of a promotion about your show next Saturday.
Well, I don't know my guest yet, but I will either be talking about ghosts and spirits, or I will be talking about Bigfoot, one or the other, depending on my guest. Saturday evening, Facebook Live, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And tell people how they can find you, Val.
On my Facebook page under Valerie Rasnick.
Which is that?
That's the only place I have right now, is my Facebook
keep
Live.
telling you to use the channel.
I know.
Keep saying, use the Wicked Women channel, because you might as well. Just a different picture in the background, but and it's weird because as we've been doing Wicked Women over time, Carly, I feel that we grow in more confidence as the week goes past.
Yeah, definitely.
From where we started with female of the species to where we are to around now, we're certainly going in a different world. Mr. Pitts, you are late getting here. Naughty. He did the same last week, I believe. He was late getting here as well. Terry, you're a bad man. I'm not saying the word now. You're a bad man. Yes, join the lovely Valerie Rasnick on her Facebook page next Saturday for Myth, Legends and the Paranormal. And it will be quite late in the UK when that's on, won't it?
Yeah.
So
this guy is up for adoption if anybody wants him, by the way. This is Moose.
Moose is Moose looking for a home?
He is.
Oh.
Tell us about Moose.
He's a big old boy. He just came here about a month ago. I'm slowly getting him back into his felt self. He had big knots in his hair and all this, so he's getting better. And as you can see, he's a love bug. He's still.
He's beautiful, isn't he? Let's look at him. He's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, he's really pretty. He's got yellow eyes.
How old is he?
I want to guess a year, no more than a year and a half, if that.
Oh, he's sweet.
So if anyone can give Moose a home.
So if anyone wants, to give Moose a good home, he is
He's beautiful.
He still acts like a kitten a lot of times. He's very playful.
Well, years ago, Val, that would have been like you'd been accused of having a familiar.
I know, but
Which
shoot,
is
I would have
something
been like strung up 2 or 3 times because I got 7 cats.
They would
I would have been like the town witch big time. Because see, I don't know if you can see, but
Oh my goodness, there's one there as well. Look,
Aw.
she's surrounded by them.
and there's one over on my couch.
Take this woman out. And
Honey
it's
is over on my couch, so
look at him. He's just had his mouth open, just like how his big fangs came out. My one is completely deserted me, and he's upstairs. Vampire. He's
But
just
Moose is he's a sweetheart. He really is.
Was that the name you gave him, Moose?
Yeah.
Because he's a big boy. He's so like, is he a blue or something? He looks like he's a blue.
Yeah, he's really dark gray.
Oh, he's lovely.
But he has yellow eyes.
Maybe he should be like the token wicked women cat, right? It's been a tough show, ladies. We've all had problems saying these words, which is not like us. Normally, we're really, really good with stuff like this. There's been flickering on and off, I've noticed, certainly here on with the screen. So I think when we start to talk about certain subjects, you can invoke energy, and you certainly can call it in around you. But I think we've talked about it in a very respectful way, and
Yes.
also very tongue-in-cheek as well. And we've, as I said, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. I just want to bring up a comment here before we go. What's 7 with one more, says Carlene. Terry, if you're not here next week at the start, that is it. You're excommunicated. But yes, Wicked Women will return next Sunday, 10 o'clock UK, 4 o'clock
Central.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock Eastern.
Look out for the promo. It will be out either Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday. It depends how my week goes. Ladies, stay behind. And I will just want to wish everybody from me, before I let you lovely ladies say goodbye, from me, have a wonderful week. Take care of yourself and each other. Carly and Val, do you want to say goodbyes?
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us. As always, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and fabulous manic Monday. Much love and positive vibes.
Val?
I appreciate everybody who comes to see us and interacts with us. And don't forget to boop the like button. I'm still not being able to talk. Boop the like button. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And come back and see us every Sunday.
Hit the like, share, and subscribe. Oh my God, it's doing it to me.
See, I'm
tonight.
telling you.
Oh my God, there's definitely something in it. I can feel it.
Something's affecting our.
It is definitely our energy. You can
Hair in
find
my
us
mouth.
under obviously YouTube, Wicked Women 888. You can find us under Instagram, Wicked Women 888, and under Wicked Women 888 on Twitter as well. So you can find us in 3 different places. It has been a tongue twister. That's an idea for another show. Have a great week, ladies. Talk to you soon. And I wish everybody a really, really good week. And make sure it's wicked. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.